piece of this. So welcome. My name is Christine Lookner. I am the director of the Center for International Students and Scholars. With me, we have my associate director, Nia DeYounge, and you'll be hearing from her on part of the slideshow. We also have two OLs, Ryan and Nicole. Thank you for joining us. So I think what we're going to do here is get started. The purpose of this session is for F-1 visa holders. So what we're going to talk to you about today is, first of all, who our office is, and then we're going to talk about some of the things you need to know as an international student. Whether you are here in the US right now or whether you are coming next semester, all of this is going to be important information for you to know. So it's great that you're here whether or not you are currently in the US. It shouldn't matter because all this information will be relevant to you eventually. So to get us started, this is who we are as a piece of Bentley. Our international students make up a huge percentage of Bentley's population, which we are so excited about. We have about 90 countries represented by our international students, and the percentage of undergrads is 15% of our population. So that's really a significant number, and from all over the world. Our top 5 countries are China, India, Spain, Vietnam, and Venezuela. So that's a bunch of different continents right there just in our top 5. So we're really thrilled to be able to be welcoming so many students from all over the world. Excuse me, this is who our CISS staff is. So CISS stands for Center for International Students and Scholars. And this is our team of advisors who are here to work with you throughout your time at Bentley. So there's myself and Nia at the top of the screen. We also have 2 international student advisors. We have Brittany Mackey and we have Anna Garson, who's our senior advisor. And then we have Terry Lamoureux, who sits at the front desk and always greets students with a smile. So you will definitely get to know Terry once you're on our campus and coming into our office regularly. We also have a bunch of student workers and interns that we could not do our work without. Nicole happens to be one of those, so we're very lucky to have Nicole on board with us as a student worker. You can call all of us by our given names in the office. So you can call me Christine, you can call Nia, and other staff and faculty members around campus may or may not ask for that. Bentley's a pretty casual place, so typically you can call people by their first name, but in a professor's class, you might not want to go that way. So it's totally okay to ask, how should I address you? Should I call you Christine? Should I call you Mrs. Lookner? That's a perfectly fine question to ask, but we want to reassure you that in our office you can use first names and that we're excited to meet you. So what does our office do? Our office will help you with all of the things that you see here. We are your immigration resource. So we're working with you from before you arrive. You've already worked with us to get your I-20 documents. We're working with you then, and we're working with you all the way through until after you graduate and the whole time that you're at Bentley. So we want to work with you and make sure that your immigration advising is taken care of. We answer all your questions about your status, and we help you maintain status. We're going to help you with employment on campus and off campus. We help you with that. We can advise you on travel. We provide the required travel signatures that you're going to need to be able to leave and re-enter the US. And then besides immigration, we really do a lot of help adjusting students to life in the US. We can refer you to the resources that you might need on campus. We will help you adjust and just become familiar with what life at Bentley is like, even in an atypical semester such as the one that we're in. We also have a lot of cultural programming that we offer through our office, which again will look a little different this semester. Most of it will be virtual, but we do have opportunities for students to really get to know each other and to get to know the various cultures that we have here at Bentley. This is how you can get in touch with us. So we are mostly remote right now, as most of the offices are. But we are open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. And we do have open advising hours via Zoom. So every weekday we have this twice a day from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then again from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. So we always have an advisor on duty twice a day to be able to talk with you. So you don't need an appointment. You can just come to that Zoom session and we will have an advisor waiting there for you. And that link is available on our website, so you don't need to worry about taking note of that right now. So that's always available to you from our website. You can email us. This is really a great way to get in touch with us because the questions are in writing and our answers are in writing, and sometimes that makes the communication a little bit clearer and easier for students to understand. So don't hesitate to email. We respond to that email regularly. We are also available by telephone and once in a while for one-on-one appointments, but again, this semester that's not much of a possibility because we're not in the office very often. This semester, we are likely going to be open on Wednesdays, and that will just be so that you can exchange documents. So some of you, for example, if you're coming in, if you're a CISS transfer student and you're new to Bentley, we might need to get you a document that says that you are now a Bentley student instead of whatever student you were before that. So that would be an example of something you might want to come to the office to do with us. We will be providing travel signatures also. So there's a few reasons you would want to come in and see us in the office, and so we're going to be doing that 1 day a week. Please check with us before you come just to make sure that that is still the case, because it's a trial basis and everything this semester is up in the air. So we have never a guarantee that it will be that way. So we're going to try, but do check with us before you come in just to make sure. And again, when you come in, you'll have a required mask and all of the distancing rules and everything in place. So I referenced our website a little bit earlier. Our website is a really important place for international students to familiarize themselves with, and it is bentley.edu/CISS. So it's a really easy one to remember. And the reason it's so important is that is where we post all of our updated information on all of the changes that have been happening due to the pandemic, any changes that have impacted international students. We've been really quick to post those on our website as well. We've been posting our change of procedures, how you can get in touch with us. I mentioned that our Zoom advising link is on there. We have instructions, we have regulations, we have a lot of information on our website. So Nia, I'm not sure if we want to just take a quick look just to click on there and see it. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I do want to show everybody what it looks like. Or not, that's fine too. It's actually fine if we don't make it there. I'm sure you've all seen the website before, but do know that there is a ton of information on it, and we really, really encourage you to go there and to visit it and to familiarize yourself with it. Excuse me, mostly because when you need some information from it, you want to know where to be able to easily find it, because there is a lot of information on there about regulations. So make sure you check that out after we're done with our presentation. There are two ways right now we are asking you to help us in the CISS. Obviously, we are here to help you, but we want you to help us. One of them is by staying safe and healthy. This semester is unlike any other, and we need to make sure we keep our campus safe and healthy. So there has never been more of a time that we've asked you to stay home if you are not feeling well. That's going to be the most important thing, is just not getting out and exposing other people. But aside from your health, we also need you to stay in status. So maintaining your status is not just our responsibility, it is also partly your responsibility as a student. So we need to make sure that you are going to be able to do that and to know the rules and know your regulations and stay within those and maintain your status. One of the ways that we need you to help us maintain your status is by completing the virtual immigration registration. So this was a form. It's an electronic form this year. It was sent to your email. It was likely sent to you through your admissions portal. But we have also sent it to our OLs and asked them to get that information to you as well. So you may have also received a message from your OL with a link to a registration form. This is a form that we need every F-1 international student to fill out that is a brand new student once you are in the US. If you are outside the US, we don't need you to fill that out right now. We just need it from those people who are inside the US. And that is really, really important for you to get that information to us as soon as possible so we can register your record. We have to do something called registration in CISS, where we confirm that you are here and you're taking your classes and you're ready to go. So I can't stress enough how important that registration form is. So make sure you see that. And if for some reason you haven't received that, you can always send us an email, GA_CISS, and we'll be happy to email that registration form to you.
Great. And
so, oh, Why don't you take the
Go
floor,
ahead.
Nia? Nope. Do you want to take this one, or do you want me to, Nia?
No, I was just going to say we can also send you the link in the chat in the Q&A. If you have any questions about the form, Ryan and Nicole will have the link, and they can also send it to you during this conversation.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I will then go on and talk to you about COVID-19. As you know, everything is different and everything has just been thrown into a bit of chaos this year, especially the immigration regulations. So there are a few things that are going to be allowed right now that are not usually allowed for international students. One of those things is electronic issuance of documents. So we can give you electronically, we can send you a PDF of your I-20. Some of you may have already received that over the summer. We were not previously allowed to do that. So this is an exception during COVID. Most of us are hoping it will stick, but we can't promise that. At least for now, it is allowed for us to send things to you electronically. The in-person course requirements. Normally, you are required to do things in person as an international student. Right now, that is on hold. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in our presentation. There are still a few tiny requirements related to that. You can work remotely as a Bentley student, though that is challenging right now because a lot of our new international students aren't able to do that without a social security number. But some of that work permission has also been amended for the COVID-19 period. And changes to rules. There's many of you may have heard about the 5-month rule about being outside the US. Some of that has been amended as well. I don't want to overwhelm you or confuse you with any of this, but I do want you to know that we follow the regulations very closely, and we update our website to reflect any changes that may impact you as an international student. We also email these changes to your Bentley email. So we want to make sure you are checking your Bentley email specifically, because once you arrive at Bentley, that is the main way we will be communicating with you. And if there is something that impacts our international students, we're going to contact you that way. So make sure you're checking your Bentley email on a regular basis. And I think Nia is going to take over from here.
Yes, these are. So now we're going to talk to you a bit more about the detailed requirements of your reporting responsibilities. So one of the things that our office is responsible for is updating your record in a national database. So CISS, the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System, is a US government database for all international students and scholars. So if you are currently studying on the F-1 visa, we will be checking you into this system, and your information lives here. So this is why we've collected information on anything from funding to your local address, your permanent address, phone number, all of that gets collected and added here. Our office is required by law to report that information in a timely manner to CISS in order for them to keep the system up to date. So we need to keep your information current. We need to actually report it to CISS, to the database. It's SEVP. We get a lot of our guidelines from them. So that is part of the information that you'll be submitting to us for the registration form is actually going to go into the CISS system. So some of the information that we'll need from you to keep your record current and up to date includes change of address. So if you move, say you're living on campus, you move off campus, or if you're living off campus and you change addresses, that information needs to be reported to CISS within 10 days. And you can report it in Workday. That would be the best way to do it, and just update your information in the Workday system. And then that information will filter through the different databases and end up with CISS. If you decide to withdraw from Bentley, that's also an update that we would need to know about. So you can contact us directly, and there'll be some other procedural things to work through if that happens, but we would need to know so we can update your status. Also, if you drop below a full course load, so undergraduate students are required to enroll in 12 credits per semester to maintain their F-1 visa status, and graduate students are required to enroll in 9 credits per semester. So if you are a student who drops below the requirements of your full-time course load, we would need to know so that we can update your record accordingly. And if there's not, you would have to also get that approved from the university before you could move forward being under-enrolled. If you decide to transfer to another school, we also need to know that so that we can update your CISS record and make sure it's current. And if there are any other changes in the information that's listed on your I-20 document, if there's changes, we want to make sure your passport name matches the name on the I-20, make sure that the date of birth is correct, things like that. So anything that appears on the actual I-20 document that might change in the near future, please let us know before it changes or quite soon after, so that we can make sure your CISS record is updated. So one way to update your address is using Workday Student. Make sure, again, that you update your address within 10 days of a move, and make sure that you also confirm the address in Workday as your local address. So a local address means that it is in the United States. Your permanent address is required to be an address outside of the United States, and that's a requirement for your CISS record. Now we'll talk about your immigration documents and what these mean and why they are important. So your passport, F-1 visa, your entry stamp, your I-94 travel record, and your I-20. These are all very important pieces of the immigration puzzle. So first off, your passport. Your passport always needs to be valid for 6 months into the future. So you can check the expiration date on your passport to make sure that it is not expiring anytime soon. And if it is, you're actually able to renew your passport in the United States. So we can help you reach out to the appropriate consulate for your country of citizenship, and make sure that your passport is always current and valid for more than 6 months in the future. If that were to happen, you can keep your old passport. Your old passport might be the one that has your F-1 student visa in it, so you're not required to turn that in. It still has relevant information, so you could keep your old passport but also have the new one. Next is your visa. So as students who are studying and holding an F-1 student visa, this is really important. So because there are different immigration documents, it's important to have clarity about what each one actually does. So your visa is like a key. It gets you into the door of the United States. So when you're entering the United States, and whether you're coming through by airplane, or if you're driving, or if you are other means of transportation, the visa is actually the key that gets you into the country. And once you're inside the door, you don't need your visa anymore. It's going to stay in your passport, but it's not required. Like if your visa expires, for example, while you're in the US, that's okay. You can still stay here. But the next time you need to leave and re-enter, you will need to have an up-to-date visa in order to get back in. And I also just want to remind you, if you have questions as we're going through the session, please feel free to add them to the Q&A so that we can reply to you and make sure that we're addressing any issues as they come up. So we have a little quiz, and you could pop your answers into the Q&A. But what does your F-1 visa allow you to do? A, stay in the United States until it expires. B, work in the United States. C, ask permission to enter the United States in F-1 status. Or D, all of the above. So I'll let you sit with the question for a few seconds, and then we'll give you the answer just to make sure that you are following along and retaining all of this. So your F-1 visa actually allows you to ask permission to enter the US in F-1 status. So when you are at the border of the United States and trying to come in and enter with Customs and Border Protection, your visa is what allows you to ask to enter the United States in this particular visa status. So true or false question, I must leave the United States if my visa expires. Is this question true or false? The answer is false. If your visa expires, you do not need to leave the United States. You can stay because you're already in the door. You've already entered and you can stay here. You can stay in the US for as long as your I-20 document is valid. So just to reiterate, it's totally fine. You can stay in the United States if your visa expires while you're here. Some students have visas that are only issued for a few months at a time or maybe a year at a time, and you may actually stay in the United States for all 4 years of your studies, and that's perfectly fine. Just know that once you do leave the US, you'll need a new visa to get back in. So another thing that you can see on your F-1 visa, and some of you may actually be looking at this as we're going through the presentation. If you are interested in traveling and leaving the United States and coming back, which Granted, during these times it's a little bit trickier, but there is a notation on your visa that will say how many entries you're allowed to have in and out of the United States. So some students will have an M for number of entries, and that means that you can enter multiple times. If you have anything other than M, it means that's a specific number of times that you're allowed to leave and re-enter the United States on your visa. So the entry stamp is in your passport, and many different ports of entry are still using this. Some are not, and that's okay. But this is something that normally was granted by the immigration officer at the place where you enter. So as you're coming through customs, as you're coming through border security, they would be stamping your passport to show that you entered on this particular date at this particular port of entry. So it'll say admitted across the top, and then underneath there's 3 little letters that are marked to say, for example, San Francisco, Boston, New York City, and it'll actually have a detail about where you entered the country. And one of the important things on here, the most important really, is that it says that you're entered in F-1 status and that you see a DS. That means duration of status. And that means you're entered to be in the United States for as long as your I-20 is valid and your CISS record is active. So remember, CISS is maintaining your active record, and we're also updating anything on your I-20. So that's another reason to keep us up to date if anything changes. If you leave the university, if you are, you don't necessarily just make sure that we are up to date on where your address, that you're still in the country, that you haven't transferred to another school, anything like that would help us to keep your CISS record active. So making sure that you're admitted in F-1 status is very important. There is also another document that we'll talk about that shows your F-1 status is correct. If you're admitted as a tourist, for example, you wouldn't be able to study. So sometimes people have multiple visas in their passport. You might have a visa that says V1, for example, and that means that you're using a tourist visa. So while you're studying as a full-time student at Bentley, you don't want to be on a tourist visa. You want to be on an F-1 student visa because there are different benefits to that and there are different accepted rules for the F-1. So if you don't have a stamp, also don't worry if you do not have a stamp. You can definitely look at your electronic I-94 record, which we'll also talk about, and that will also confirm that you've entered in the right status. So one thing we want to point out is that there is a difference between having an F-1 visa and being in F-1 status. So if you have an F-1 visa, that just means that you have a physical label in your passport and that it was issued at a US consulate or embassy outside of the United States. However, if you're in F-1 status, that means that you were approved to be in F-1 status once you entered the US. And that means that you have an I-20 and an F-1 visa that are up to date. And it also determines what you can and cannot do in the United States. So the visa itself is a piece of paper. Status is different, and it means it confers certain benefits having that F-1 status. So we'll talk about the I-94, and the I-94 is another method of confirming that you've entered the United States in the correct visa status. So I-94 is it's an electronic record for all travelers who enter the United States. There used to be a paper form that was issued to show this, but now it's electronic, so you can actually go online to the website listed on this slide, and you would be able to look up your immigration status to confirm that it is F-1. So on the registration form that we had a link to earlier, and you can also send that if you need it again, but it was emailed to you. The registration form, we will be asking for a copy of your I-94 record because our office needs to confirm that you've entered in F-1 status and that you are here for the duration of status. So we want to confirm those so that we can register your record in the CISS database. Now we want to take a look at your I-20 form and make sure that you understand the information that is on here. So your I-20 form is the one that CISS created several months ago, possibly, and emailed or most likely sent you a hard copy of your I-20 form. So currently, as Christine had mentioned, the government is permitting us to issue electronic I-20s that you can print and sign. If you need a new I-20 for any reason, we will most likely be sending you an electronic link instead of a hard copy, just due to the current situation. But one of the things that we want to point out is on the form, sort of in the middle section of the front page, there's a section called Program of Study, and it has your specific your education level. So if you're an undergraduate, it'll say bachelor's degree. It'll have your major listed, which for most students is undeclared right now, and it'll also show your program start and end dates. The I-20 is only issued for students who are planning to come to the US on the F-1 visa. And the I-20 is actually the form that makes you eligible to request an F-1 visa at a US consulate or embassy abroad. So the validity dates on your visa, those are the same as the program start and end dates. Will say the date that you're expected to report to school and the date that you're expected to complete studies. So if either of those dates changes, some students obviously may have deferred into the spring semester, so we want to change the start date on their I-20 and make sure they have a valid I-20 since they're not entering the US just yet. Other students may need to extend their program, in which case we want to make sure to update your end date as well. So just let us know if any changes are needed on your I-20, if you're graduating early, if you need more time, if there's any incorrect information on your I-20 form, or if you're changing degree programs or changing your major. Let us know so that we can update that information as soon as possible. Also on page 3 of your I-20, you'll see there's a lot of text. So feel free, you can always read the back of this. There are lots of regulations about your F-1 status, and most of this we're going over actually in this presentation, but it is helpful as an added note. This is an added resource for you that you can look over this and read all of it, make sure it's clear to you, and let us know if you have any questions. Make sure that you keep all of your I-20s. It is possible that you'll be issued more than one I-20 during your time at Bentley, because we would issue a new one if you change your major, if you change your program dates, if you change anything about if you change your country of citizenship, make sure that you let us know so that we can update your I-20, but we will issue you a new copy, most likely electronically. But keep all of those because those are your immigration record. It's part of your immigration history in the United States. So keep copies of all of those. You will need them at a later stage if you decide to apply for OPT, which we'll talk about later.
All right, thank you, Nia. I think I'm gonna take back over here a little bit of the presentation. Before I get to speaking about this section, I do want to make a note that there are a few questions in the Q&A, and we see those, and so we will get to those. And most of them are about social security numbers and about employment, so there is a section coming up in our presentation that's going to address those questions. So just make sure we do see those questions, and we're going to answer them as we get to those relevant sections, but feel free to keep entering in questions, and we'll be happy to answer those for you. All right, so this slide is about maintaining your full-time student status. So it is, in order to be a student in the United States, you need to maintain full-time status. This is one of the most important rules that you need to remember as an F-1 student. Undergraduate students, who is everyone on this call, you need to take 12 credits at least every semester. You can take 15, you can take 16, 18, but you must have at least 12 credits in order to be considered a full-time student in valid F-1 status. If you need to drop below that for any reason, there are only a very few minimal amount of exceptions, and they're not very common. So hopefully that doesn't happen to you. But if you have any questions about dropping below status, you need to come and talk to CISS right away. And again, you can contact us through Zoom or through email so we can give you that information. But for the most part, you just need to remember that you need to keep those 12 credits going so that you can keep your record intact. There is an exception for your final semester, or again, if you're pre-authorized for specific reasons. So I mentioned earlier that there are some changes to regulations due to the COVID-19 exception. Normally, you would only be permitted to take one online class per semester, and you would need to make sure that you are maintaining in-person presence by attending 50% of your hybrid classes, et cetera, et cetera. All of these rules are currently on hold. So the nice thing about this pandemic, there's very few nice things, but there is some flexibility here for international students. So if you are a brand new F-1 student, meaning this is your first time in the US on an F-1 visa, You have to take at least one course that is hybrid, which means you need to physically show up in class for at least one of your classes, okay? And we have worked with most of you that are brand new in the US to make sure that your schedule accommodates this. If for some reason you are a brand new F1 student and you do not have at least one hybrid class on your schedule, we're gonna encourage you to come and talk to us right away so that we can help take care of that for you. If you are a continuing student, so all of you, I know you are brand new students to Bentley, but some of you may be transfer students, or some of you may have transferred here from a high school in the United States in which you were already in an F1 visa. You get to study remotely. You do not have that same requirement as having to show up in at least one of your classes. You may take all of your classes remotely, as long as you're maintaining that full course load. So this next slide breaks it out a little bit more clearly for you. So again, new F1 visa students are required to be registered in at least one hybrid course. And in that course, you need to make sure that you are showing up for at least 50% of the course meetings. For many of you, we have already outreached to your professors to make sure that this will be a possibility, in addition to which there are certain sections of the first year seminar in which you are guaranteed a seat, and that satisfies the requirement. So again, if you feel like you're in this category and you are not able to meet the requirement with the schedule that you have, I can't say this enough, you must come talk to us as soon as possible. For CISS transfer and for change of level students, there should be no change of level students on this call, so mostly this is just applicable to CISS transfer students. Again, that's someone who was in an F1 status at another school before coming to Bentley, whether that's another college or whether that is a high school. You do not have any requirements for in-person course registration. You may also take all online courses. For students who have not entered the US, obviously your classes are going to be remote because you are not here to be able to take your classes in person. You may do so. That is perfectly fine, that is allowed, and you do not need to worry about your immigration status to be able to take courses remotely from outside the US. Once you enter the US, that is when your F1 immigration status will begin. So for those of you who have decided to wait and take your classes at home this semester, that's great. You will be working with our office and we'll be giving you a new I20 with a start date that is in January of 2021 so that you can either get a new F1 visa or pair it with the visa that you already have to be able to accurately enter the US in F1 status starting in January, hopefully. We often get questions about the summer vacation period, and this is a period that I think students sometimes get confused, so we wanted to clarify that for you, especially with the trimester system that Bentley is now on. During the summer, that is still considered a vacation period for F1 international students. You may stay in the US, or you may go home. You may take classes or you may not. So there are very few requirements for international students in the summer period. So once you have entered and begun your F1 status, the summer really is your free period to do with as you wish. You can stay or go, you can take classes or not. So there's a lot of free choice in the summer. That summer, talk of summer makes us think of travel. So traveling, if you are traveling within the US, you do want to take your documents with you. If you have a real ID, that is a great substitute. If not, you can travel with your passport as a valid document to be able to use as identification purposes. When you travel outside the US, you need a passport, you need an F1 visa stamp that has not yet expired so that you can get back into the country. And you need to always carry with you that I20, and you need to carry your most recent one and make sure you have a travel signature, as Nia was explaining. Those travel signatures are valid for 1 year, so you need to make sure you have that with you. We caution you, this little box in yellow here, obviously travel right now is uncertain. So there are lots of things that can happen to make changes to travel plans. Quarantine rules may pop up, countries may ban each other. We don't know how this is going to play out. So we really do encourage you to pay attention, to check regularly on the situation for your travel. And you can always check with us. We try to post on our website a reference where students can get the most up-to-date travel information for when they're going to be traveling. The travel signature. So this is page 2 of your I-20, the I-20 document Nia was explaining before. And we are currently allowed to give this to you electronically, though we can also give this to you in person. And as I mentioned, we will hopefully be open on Wednesdays to be able to help you with this feature. The travel signature is important because what that does is it proves to the person at the airport that you are a current student. It says, okay, I checked in and Nia signed my document to prove that I am a current student. So it has to be signed by someone in the CISS office. One of our staff personnel that has the authority to sign these documents needs to sign it for you at least once a year. So again, we can do this electronically this time around. We can also do it in person. So typically this is something that's done in person, specifically in blue ink. But because we're allowed to do it electronically, we will be able to help you with this by email for the fall trimester. All right, a brief quiz here with my friend Leo DiCaprio. When should I get my I-20 signed for travel? Do you need this every time you leave the US? Do you need it once a year? Do you need it for travel within the US? Or do you need it if you are taking a year off from school to work for Google? I will let you pause and think about that question for a quick moment while you stare at Leo DiCaprio signing all of the I-20s. All right, Nia, can you reveal the answer for us? You should get your I-20 signed once a year. So once that signature is on there, it is valid for 1 full year. So that's important to remember. You do not need to get it every time you leave the US. And I think Nia is going to take over.
Student employment. So just transitioning from travel signatures into working. So one important thing that I'll just point out is that CISS can definitely help you with getting permission to work in the United States. We will encourage you to also work with the Career Development Center on actually finding the jobs that you're looking for, but we can help you with the permission. So for on-campus employment, there are different types of employment. There's on-campus employment and off-campus employment. For on-campus, that would be defined as you're getting a paycheck from Bentley. There are some different types of jobs that students will ask about and ask if this is considered on-campus employment. So whether you're working for one of the offices at Bentley University or working for dining hall or working for catering services, there are many different jobs that you might have on campus. And the maximum number of hours that you're allowed to work while you're studying full-time is 20. So during normal school times, when school is in session, you're allowed to work for up to 20 hours a week. On vacation periods, you can work for up to 40 hours a week. And that would be considered full-time. But normally you can be a part-time worker during the normal school year while you're also studying. So authorization is required when you're working off campus. If you're working on campus, there's no additional authorization that's needed, but you will have some documents that CISS can help you collect and pull together. So you will need specific authorization to work off campus. It's not lawful to work off campus without permission from the US government or from CISS. So we'll explain what that means exactly. So definitely don't want to work without authorization, especially off campus, because it could result in CISS needing to terminate your CISS record and a potential ban from the United States. So we don't want that to happen. We want you to have all the proper work permissions you need to be employed and to get different experiences, internship experiences, job experiences off campus. But you could be disqualified from getting another type of visa in the future if you work without permission off campus. So off-campus employment. For F1 students, there are 2 different types of off-campus employment, and they are defined as practical training. So the first one is curricular practical training. We refer to that as CPT. And this refers specifically to internships that are done off campus for credit. You are eligible after completing 1 academic year in a valid visa status, and the work that you do off campus must count for course credit. You can also refer to academic advising to learn about more about the eligibility requirements for credit-bearing internships. And each different department has a specific program coordinator who's dedicated to working on internships with students. So for CPT, it's a pretty simple application process, but it does require an offer letter from your employer, a form from CISS, and also working with your internship coordinator for your major degree program. The other type of off-campus authorization is OPT, and it is defined as optional practical training. You're not required to do any of these, right? You're not required to do CPT, you're not required to do OPT either. However, if you're interested in working off campus after you complete your studies in your F-1 status, you can keep working for up to a year after you've graduated from Bentley. So this would be used after you've already gotten your degree, but you want to stay in the United States for up to 12 months to be able to get some work experience. So this would require submitting an application to the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service, and the approval process takes generally it takes around 3 to 4 months, but you would begin applying as soon as 90 days before the completion of your program. So students they're not able to apply for OPT until they're in their final semester. So the semester that you're graduating from Bentley is when you'd be applying for OPT. We generally have information sessions about OPT and CPT when we're on campus, and we will still be doing those, but just remotely. So you'll have access to that, and there's lots of information on our website about how to apply for each and the eligibility requirements. So make sure that you always check with CISS before you do any sort of paid or unpaid employment or internships that are off campus. And you can visit our website for more details about information sessions, application procedures, eligibility, and any information, any questions you have, please feel free to email us as well. The Social Security number is an important piece of working, because in the United States, you will need to have, it's considered almost like tax identification information. So you have to have a Social Security number if you're going to be paid. So if you have an unpaid internship or unpaid other unpaid experiences, you don't need a Social Security number. But if you are getting paid in any way, then you would need to have one of these. And to apply, I would recommend you contact our office, because some of this has changed a little bit just because a lot of offices are working remotely. Normally you would apply at any one of the Social Security Administration offices, which are in each city throughout the state. And you would bring your immigration forms, the offer letter from your employer, whether it's an on-campus employer or off-campus, and you would also complete the Social Security application form. So because many of these Social Security offices are working remotely, you may actually have to mail in this information instead of just bringing it directly to the office. But you can contact CISS if you have any questions about that process and what it looks like going forward. Social Security is, as I said, operating remotely, so that may also kind of impact the process by which you apply, but it doesn't mean that you're completely not able to apply for one. So if there's anyone who has a job that should be starting this semester, feel free to reach out to us, and we can provide you with more detail about how that process is working and how to reach out to those offices. If you have any sort of position that's on campus this semester, you will need to be registered. You'll have to have your CISS record registered so that we can update it before you can actually submit anything to the Social Security office, because our databases are connected with theirs, so that they'll be able to see if you are eligible for work. And just a reminder as well, because we have had this happen in the past and we'd love for it not to happen ever again, but there are certain scams, fraudulent activity that if anyone ever reaches out to you, please let us know. We want to give you forewarning. The government, the Social Security Administration, the IRS, none of them will call you over the telephone. We've had some experiences in the past with scams happening because someone calls on the phone and they ask you to give a certain amount of money or mail information or take money out of your bank account. If you get any sort of call like that, you can just hang up immediately. You can contact CISS, you can contact campus police, but make sure never give any of your personal details over the phone. The government will never ask you to pay a fee via a particular method like a wire transfer or using gift cards. Never provide personal, financial, social security, bank account, or credit card information over the phone, unless you know you're talking to a legitimate source. But if any, these scams usually call and try to kind of scare students because they sound very official, but they will take your money and it will be very difficult to get it back. The government will not threaten deportation, so that's not a tactic that they use. And again, if you get a call and you're not sure of it, hang up and contact CISS. You will not going to get into trouble with anyone if you hang up the phone and contact us before anything happens, okay?
Thanks, Nia. I actually want to remind everybody that I was just speaking with one of our campus police officers this morning, and that just actually happened to a student last week. And oftentimes, someone will call and be very, very intimidating and say, well, someone has used your record and now you're going to be in trouble if you don't do this. And, they know that using immigration as a threat is a very powerful tool. And unfortunately, they're very good at what they do. So you might be sitting here thinking, oh, I'm not going to fall for that. I would never buy gift cards and but the scammers are very good. So please do be alert, pay attention, educate your friends. If your friends are wondering about it, if there's anything at all that feels like it might be suspicious, it probably is. So we encourage you to just really be alert and be aware about that. I'm sensitive to the fact that we are running low on time, so I'm going to speed through this part pretty quickly. But I do want to highlight that adjusting to life at Bentley is going to have its ups and downs. You're going to start out, typically when people start out, it's super exciting and there's so much going on and you're meeting all these new people, even if you're meeting them virtually, but you're meeting all these new people and it's exciting. And then everything starts to get real and you start to hit reality and it starts to not be okay. And what we want to remind you of is that it is going to be waves. So you will sometimes be down and sometimes be up, and that is typical for culture shock. Culture shock is just an expression that explains what happens when you become part of a different culture than what you're normally used to. I think during this pandemic, we are all part of a new culture, a new online culture that none of us are used to, so we're all adjusting to this a little bit. But please do know that you may experience this, and it's typically very, very normal. So we don't want you to worry, but we do get concerned, and I think on the next slide I'm going to show you, we do get concerned if it starts to get too worrisome. So we want to make sure that you don't get to a very, very bad place. If you do start to feel any of these feelings, you feel unsafe, you feel depressed, you feel hopeless, please know that there are people at Bentley who are really, really here to help you. This is our job. We are certainly here to make sure that you don't have any of these emojis pop up in your life for real. So please contact us, contact your RA, contact your OL, contact someone if you're starting to not feel like this is a normal way to be feeling. As I mentioned, there are a ton of resources here at Bentley for people to be able to help you. And I want to highlight that even though we may not be physically in our offices all of the time, we are still a great resource for you. We can always be contacted by phone, by email, by Zoom advising. There are a bunch of ways to get in touch with people. And I don't want you to hesitate to contact people, even if we're not physically present. We are still working and we are still here for you. Your professors actually care very much about you as well. So this is one of the advantages of choosing a small school, is that your professors are really they really want to make sure that you have a successful experience here, and they will get to know you because it's a small enough classroom that they will get to know each of you. We have a system here called progress reports, and that is something where the professor is going to be asked to make a comment about how you're doing in their class. And this is a very good thing. We think this is a really great tool for professors to be able to say, hey, Nicole's doing a great job in this class, or maybe Nicole had a little difficulty with that first test. I'd like her to come and talk to me during my office hours so we can get some extra help. They are not meant to be a reprimand. They are really, really meant to help you and to give a little warning like, maybe we need to look at this. And please do pay attention to the progress reports because they're meant to give you help before it is too late to be able to get that help. So we really do want you to not be scared of the progress report system and to appreciate it and to listen carefully to what the professors have to say. We encourage you to attend office hours, whether they are virtual or in person. We want you to get to know your faculty members, and your faculty members want to get to know you. So really, especially in this time when most of us are online with each other, I really encourage you to drop in, just say hello. Even if you don't have that much to say about the class, ask a question, get to know the professor a little bit more. I think you'll find it to be really, really helpful. And then if you do need help later on, then you have a relationship with that faculty member, and it will be a great tool for you. There are also a couple other resources we want to highlight for you. One is the ESOL Center. So ESOL stands for English as a Second or Other Language. This is for people who are non-native English speakers. It is a fantastic resource. I cannot say this enough. We have a whole team of staff who work in this office, and they're there to help you, whether it's help preparing a paper or preparing a presentation. They are trained in helping people whose native language is not English learn how to communicate more properly in English. So please, it's a free resource. I definitely encourage you to take advantage of them, and that information is also all available on the website. And there's tutoring. We have tutoring that's specific to many of the different academic departments. So there's math tutoring, there's finance tutoring, there's GB tutoring, all of the classes you're taking. And they are Bentley students who are skilled in those fields that are here to help you make the best of your classes and to be able to learn and be successful. And just a reminder here that professors are also adjusting to teaching virtually. This is their first time doing this too, so don't hesitate. If you think something's not going well, let them know, let us know, let someone know, because everybody really wants to work to make this successful this semester. We also want you to get involved. There are clubs and organizations, so many groups for you to join at Bentley. That is going to be absolutely the best way for you to get to know other students. This is a shout out to our International Student Association. That's a club that we encourage most of our international students to participate in. They do some really great activities, and you'll also get to know people from all around the world. And on here, there's a whole directory of all the student organizations that you can get involved with. One particular program through our office is the Worldview program. And this is a program that we'll be starting to accept new applications next semester, I believe, for the spring semester, hopefully. But this is something you can think about now and maybe start to get excited about. It's a chance for international students to be asked to serve as an ambassador and to come and give presentations either in a classroom or to a group of staff or other students, and to be able to talk about their experience as a person from that particular country and put their own perspective on something that the professor might already be talking about in their classroom. It's a fantastic program, so we really encourage you to think about applying to be a Worldview ambassador starting in the spring 2021 semester. So we have left 5 minutes here for questions. As I mentioned, I saw some of the questions in the chat. I'm hopeful that the Social Security questions were answered by Nia's presentation on that section, but I will go through here, so I'm going to read through these really quickly. Getting a job. There is a student, how do I get a job is the question. There is a student employment website that you can go to, and they will be able to, they post all of the openings on Bentley's campus, and you do need a Social Security number already to be able to work at Bentley this semester, so that's an extra challenge, but some of you, it sounds like, might already have a Social Security number. Does an F-1 visa allow us to pursue internships? The answer is yes. That is called CPT, Curricular Practical Training, and again, that was a section that Nia explained, so hopefully you got the information there that you needed, but yes, you certainly can pursue a couple of internships during your time here at Bentley. Oh, this is a great question. I don't have my I-20 signed, so when should I get it signed? That's a great question. So we did specify that you will need to get it signed, but we did not specify when. So we cannot sign your I-20 yet. First, what needs to happen is we need to get you all registered in the CISS system before we can sign that signature for you. So hopefully you are not planning on traveling anytime in the next couple of weeks. If you are, come and see us. Otherwise, I would say probably starting in about mid to late September, we'll be able to start issuing travel signatures. So you'll receive a communication from us once we're ready to start issuing those for students. There is another question in here, and it is specific to an individual. So I think I'm going to ask the person who is going to a wedding to maybe just contact us and send an email to our GA_CISS@bentley.edu. And I think since your situation is so unique and individual, I think we'd probably want to answer that one separately. Someone is wondering, due to connectivity issues, I missed some information during the I-20 explanation. Where can I find the recording of this Zoom later? That is a great question. I actually didn't mean to hit that. I wonder if Ryan or Nicole could maybe indicate where we're going to be able to post this session afterwards.
I'm not sure yet because I think we're just having it on cloud, and later on we're probably gonna send a link to whoever need it, and we can share with CISS if you want to send it to students.
That's great. Yeah, if you share it with CISS, we'll make sure it gets posted somewhere that students will be able to see it, probably through our CISS website. That's great. Okay, I am not seeing any other questions in the chat. I can leave it open for one more minute in case someone still has a question that might not be answered. Nicole or Ryan, I think we're good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all
right.
set. Thank you so much, Christine. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah, thank you everyone. And we really look forward to being able to meet you when we can, whether it's virtually or in person. And we're happy to answer any questions. So one more person is asking for the email address to ask questions. I'm going to type that into the chat right here. That's great, because this is an email address you're actually going to want to memorize. You are going to be in touch with us a lot during your time at Bentley, so I've just answered that. It's GA_CISS@bentley.edu. That is a really great way to get in touch with us, and we'll be able to answer your questions quickly. All right, everyone, enjoy the rest of your time. Good luck in your classes next week, and have a wonderful weekend.
We also just wanted to remind you that our next session, Academic Resources and Live Chat, is going to be starting in just a minute at 2 o'clock. And if you'd like to participate in that, you can find the link on your Bentley Connect portal. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody.